Okay, in this session, we're going to be looking at the assignment in Synergy that's called Baby. You're going to be learning how to make and alter a layer mask. To find the images that you need, you're going to go to bit.ly/layermask-baby. bit.ly/layermask-baby. You're also going to want to go to bit.ly/layermask-mountains for the second image. Layermask-baby, layermask-mountains. All right, get rid of these layers here. We're going to start with this baby. Okay, mountains. You can have that open in another tab. With the baby, we're going to use this tool here, the fourth tool down, called the Quick Selection tool. If you click and hold down on the Quick Selection tool, you'll see that there are two options there, Quick Selection and Magic Wand. For this, we're going to use the Quick Selection tool. Now, the Quick Selection tool, it's got some settings up at the top. This area underneath the menus up at the top is called the Option bar. And the setting that you want to change is right here called Size. You are going to have it set to whatever it was set to the last time you used it. If this is the first time using it, it'll be set to 30. Change the size to 100. You can just type 100, or you can move this slider. It doesn't have to be exactly 100. Anywhere in the neighborhood of 100 will work. And you get this brush. The brush should have a plus sign in the middle of it. If it doesn't, if you have a crosshair, it looks like this, your caps lock is on. Turn off caps lock. It'll turn back into your brush for you. If you don't have a plus sign, if you have a minus sign, you need to look up here. There's 3 buttons. You should have it set to plus, or if it's set on the first one here, that's okay too, new selection. But you don't want to have it set to subtract. All right, then you just go to the middle of the thing that you're trying to select, and you click and drag. And as you drag, you want to keep your brush on the area that's trying to be selected. Don't go off the baby. As you get in here, it starts to get a little tight. You may have to make your quick selection tool a little bit smaller, but with this setting of 100, if you just go right about here and click, it should grab it for you. Okay. You may not have exactly everything that you need selected, but that's looking pretty good. There's a spot here that we missed. If you hold down the Alt key, you get that minus sign. Okay, Alt is the shortcut to switch to the minus sign. You can see it right up here. So hold down Alt. You can kind of click once in here, and it'll get rid of that for you probably. Click a couple more times maybe. Just get in there. There's a little bit over here. If you don't get it perfect, it's okay. That's the beauty of a layer mask, is that you can come back later and fix it up. So up at the top here, you've got a button, Refine Edge, right up here. You want to go up here and click on the Refine Edge button. Refine Edge, click. And it's going to come up, and you have this choice of views. Yours is probably going to be set to on white, which doesn't do us a whole lot of good because the original background was white. So if it shows on white in your view menu, change it to on black. On black will let you see the edge better. On white, you couldn't really tell that you had this weird little white vignette around the edge of your baby's head. And so we look at our selection. You can move Refine Edge. If it's in the way, grab this white bar and you can move it out of the way so you can see better what you're looking at. And that is a rough looking selection. We can clean it up a little bit here in Refine Edge. So what's happening is we're moving these sliders around. It's taking that original little glowing edge, this thing, it's taking this glowing edge and it's adjusting it, scooching it in and out, smoothing it, feathering it a little bit, okay? But if you do it on black, you can see what it's actually going to look like when we drag it over to the mountains. So, smooth. Your smooth slider, if we move it all the way, you can see what it does is it just takes all the jagged edges and just kind of cuts them off. Makes a nice smooth edge. The problem is you lose the really small areas, like maybe this baby's toe got cut off a little bit. There we go. Bring his toes back. So smooth, you got to be careful. You're not losing important parts of your selection, but a little bit of smoothing is usually a good thing. So maybe set it around 25, somewhere around there. Now, feather, is going to take the edge of that selection, that glowing marching ant selection that we had, and it's going to fade it. It's going to do a little bit of a gradient. It's going to fade it in, and it's going to fade it out. So because it fades it out, you got to be careful. If I push it all the way, you can see that it fades it way out, and all my background is now back in. Even if I feather it not a lot, I'm going to get that white background back in, okay? Which is not usually what you're looking for. Sometimes it's a cool effect, but not if you're trying to make a nice tight selection. So a little bit of feather goes a long way. Maybe set mine about 2 or 3. Kind of softens the edge up, makes it look nice. Contrast, sometimes you do feather, and it gets a little soft. You like the effect, but it's a little soft. Contrast will kind of bring that back. Change the contrast, and it'll sharpen that edge up. Just like all of these, if you go too far, now you've got really jagged edges along the outside of your selection. So you don't want to go too far. A little bit of contrast will be good, kind of sharpen that back up. Now this last setting can be real helpful. Shift edge. You can see here, my selection went out a little bit too far around the edge here. I got this white. Now there's other solutions to hair, and that'll be a separate lesson. But one thing that you can do is you take shift edge, you can move it in negative, and as you move the shift edge slider to the left, that whole selection kind of tightens up. And now we've got a lot less of that white around the outside here. Again, you have to watch out for like fingers and toes and all those little bits. Now down here, where the blanket was, is really rough. That's okay. That's going to work out just fine for our next step. Don't worry about that. One important setting in Refine Edge, in addition to getting all these nice looking, edges tightened up, is output. Change your output to layer mask. If you change that to a layer mask, or even new layer with layer mask, that is going to give us a lot of control in the next few steps. Okay, and that's what today's lesson is all about, layer mask. So make sure you change output to layer mask, and then click OK. When you do, it's going to take that selection that we just tightened up, and it's going to turn it into a layer mask. This button right over here says layer mask thumbnail. You click on it, and that's your layer mask. If I hold down Alt and click on it, you don't need to do that. But if I hold down Alt, you can see what the layer mask looks like. The white area is the area that is visible. The black area is the area that's being hidden. And as you can see, the whole picture is still here. If I were to right-click on the mask and say Disable, it'll turn that mask off, and the whole picture is still here. It's just being hidden by the black part. It's pretty cool. It's a very powerful tool. Now, let's get the baby and move it over. Go to your Move tool, first tool in the toolbar. Right over here, top one. You click and hold, move it around, and you need to move it up to mountains. So you click and hold, drag, drag, drag all the way up to the word mountains, right here to this tab. Do not let up on your mouse. Keep holding that mouse down, and then drag down, 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 and drop the baby. He's a big baby. Let me show you what not to do. You got it? You click, you drag, 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 and then you let up on your mouse. Nope, no baby. You got to click and hold, drag, 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 hold, 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 drag, 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 and then drop. Okay, I don't need 2 babies, so I'll delete that layer. Okay, now you got your baby. You've done it. This is the first time in this class probably that we've done layers, okay? Now you're starting to really feel like Photoshop. This is the power of Photoshop. Once you get into layers, you can really start making stuff pop. Now, this baby's too big, so we need to do a transform. The shortcut for free transform is Control-T. Control-T. When you do Control-T, you get your transform box here. If you're zoomed in and you do Control-T, you can't see the edges. You need to zoom out or do Control-0. Control-0 will zoom you out as well. And then you can grab a corner. And if you grab a corner of this picture, hold Shift. If you don't hold Shift, you're gonna squish your baby. Okay? Hold Shift so that the baby stays proportionate. Okay? Hold Shift, stretch your baby. And then when you go to, you can move them while you're still in transform. You can move them around. You can grab anywhere on the baby except here. This little axis point, don't grab that. Nothing happens if you do that. And we'll talk later about how to affect change with that axis point. So grab anywhere, drag the baby around, and you want to get him about this size here. And you want to get him so that he is positioned so that this armpit is kind of right at the edge of that mountain range. Okay? Because we're going to make it look like he's a giant climbing over the mountains to attack, I don't know, the village below. I don't know what he's doing. Okay, but get him positioned. Maybe I'll make him a little bit smaller. Get him positioned so his armpit here is right at the edge. And then this arm, you know, it might be in a little bit, but, you know, it's coming over the edge of the mountains like that. Okay, once you get it sized and kind of placed the way you want, you click the check mark up at the top of the screen and lock it in. Now comes the power of layer masking. Once you got that locked in, over here is your layer mask. You got to be careful. You've got to click on the mask. There's two things you can click on. You can click on the layer thumbnail right here, or the layer mask thumbnail right here. Okay? It's a big difference. Click on the layer mask thumbnail, the black and white, because like I showed you before, that's what that looks like, black and white. If you get your paintbrush, go ahead and click on your paintbrush tool over here. The shortcut for the paintbrush tool is B. Click on your brush tool. We're going to paint with black and white. So when you click on your layer mask down here, this should be black and white. Okay, if it happens to be like a gray shade, click this button right here. This is your default colors. If you click default, it'll switch these to black and white, but it should be black and white when you click on it. And then you get your brush tool, and then you choose a size. Start big, like 100. And then you work your way down as you go. For hardness, 50% is a good place to be for hardness. If you go 100%, it's going to make a really harsh, let's switch to black. It's going to make a really sharp edge, and it's going to be too harsh. If you do 0% for your hardness, it's going to make it probably too fuzzy. 50% is a nice happy medium. Hardness, 50%. Okay, now again, making sure you're clicked on your mask. This little flip-flop arrow right here, I'm going to mouse over it. It switches your foreground and background colors, black and white. And you see there it says X, switch foreground and background, X. X is the shortcut, and that's a really handy tool. If you click it, it'll switch them. But you don't want to have to keep coming over here, clicking that little flip-flop arrow. So if I'm here and I'm painting with black to hide. If I need to switch to white, I just hit X. Whoop, flips to white. I can paint it back. Okay, so when you paint with white, it brings your picture back, and it'll even bring back this background, which I don't want. You paint with black, it'll hide. Okay, and we're going to make it look like his legs are behind the mountain. So with this 100 pixel brush, I am painting out big stuff. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make my brush smaller. Now to make my brush smaller, I could come over here and change my size. Shrink. But I also can use a really groovy shortcut. That really groovy shortcut is the bracket keys. Look at your keyboard. Right to the right of the letter P, there's a left bracket and a right bracket. Watch. I'm going to do left bracket. Shrink. Left bracket. And right bracket makes it bigger. If you hold them down, they go really fast. Pew, whoop, pew, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to left bracket down a ways and then come back in here, paint some more. Okay, and usually I take about 3 passes. I do one with a really big brush, and I do one with a smaller brush. And then if I'm really being picky, which I probably won't be for this assignment, I get in here and really get picky. As you can see, I got in here and I went a little bit too far. I took off part of his arm. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to switch to white. I'm going to hit X. It's going to flip to white. And I'm going to come back in here and I just paint back in what I took away. Okay, bring it right back. Now if I paint it back in and say I paint too far, I just hit X again, switch to black. So a little bit of a back and forth. You may have to go back and forth a couple times, but you can get a really, really nice looking edge with layer masks. Okay, I'll come down here, get a bigger brush again, take out all of this part here, and up around his, up into his armpit, just like that. Okay, and there's a little bit of a mess here from my original selection. I can clean that up. Okay, shrink, 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 bringing it down. Coming in here with my black brush. Okay, cleaning that up. Okay. Again, if I were doing this, for money or for some sort of an important project, I would spend more time on this. But for the purposes of this assignment, this is going to work out just fine. I'm going to hit X to flip to white. And now I'm coming back in here right along the edge of this mountain range. Okay, just trying to paint it in here and make it look like he is behind the mountain. Whoops. And as I paint, trying to, oh, you see that little bit of white that came out there? I'm gonna have to go fix that. Okay. Zoom way in here. I'm gonna get an even smaller brush and then flip to black and get right in there like that. Okay. Now, there's one last thing that I want you to do to make this really feel like it's legit. And that is, there's little trees that should be popping up in front of him if he's coming over this ridge. And I want to paint those back in. So I switched to black and I want to paint them in, but I can't see them. I would just be guessing. So what I can do is this. I can come over here and change my opacity. Right over here, my opacity, 100%. Bring the opacity of my baby down to like 50% or so, 40, 30. And then I can see these trees. Okay, I'm going to zoom way the heck in. I'm going to get an even smaller brush. Let's say like a 3. Crazy, I know. And I'm going to go in here and I am going to paint trees, by golly. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make these trees look like they're right on the edge of this mountain range. And there is a baby coming up from behind, about to wreak havoc on all of the forest creatures and all of the people of the gentle mountain tribes. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, so I could do more, but you don't really need to just watch me paint in trees all day here. This kind of gives you the idea. I'm going to zoom back out and I'm going to bring up my opacity to 100%. Okay. And if you went in and worked on some more, you don't have to get every single tree, but enough to kind of give it more of a realistic feel of this mountain range. It's going to be pretty darn good, Put a headline in there, Attack of the Giant Baby, mountain baby attacks villagers. Pretty cool. And then you're going to save that as baby, your name. Make sure you put your name in the file. And then you're going to save it to your student drive, your H drive. And then you're going to save it into the shortcut on your computer to whatever Photoshop hour you're in. And I'll get that collected and get that put in for you. Hey, it's been good talking to you. See you for the next tutorial.